Hey guys, it's Krista from Hilltop in the Valley, and I have been making sourdough pizza for some time for my family. They've gotten used to that sourdough flavor. The kids love it, and I use the sourdough starter in place of a conventional yeast that helps give it the rise. And I also use Einkorn flour, which is the original wheat. It is thousands of years old, never been hybridized. It's a lot easier to digest. The gluten structure is a lot weaker. All around, it's a lot easier on your tummy. Today we're going to be making a brick oven style pizza. So this is going to be a pizza style that is cooked under high heat. You get a little bit of that fried bottom and you get bubbles in the pizza, which is great because when you're using Einkorn, and sometimes even sourdough, it feels like it's hard to get it to rise very much. And so it's going to be fun to see the bubbles in this pizza, to have a little bit of a crusty crust on it, and then combine that with our wonderful pizza toppings. So here's some tips on how I do it. I'm not a professional at this, right? I am not like a professional cook, but I have been making this several times, and so I want to share with you some of the things I've learned that make it really good. And remember, you can go to hilltopinthevalley.com, get this recipe. You can print it out so you'll have it right next to you. And then you can even turn the video along with it to make sure that you're following along with the extra tips that I'm giving you here. First, we're going to combine our active sourdough starter, our warm water, our flour, our salt, and honey if you're using honey. We're going to bring this into a ball. And I like to even just stretch and fold it inside of the bowl until it's completely into a ball. Now, the stretching and folding is done because Einkorn is not the same structure of a grain as our modern day wheat, and it's not going to necessarily rise the same way. And so stretching and folding brings in more air. So I do this several times until it's just formed into a ball. I'm going to let it sit there for about 15 minutes before coming back to it. I do this because as an ancient grain, it's also not going to absorb hydration as quickly. And so letting it sit for a little bit allows all that hydration to come and lets all those ingredients really be mixed together. This is not true if you're using a modern day wheat. You don't have to do that because it will absorb that water so quickly. So after the 15 minutes are up, you can take that dough out onto a little floured surface, and then you're going to do the same thing where you're stretching and folding all over again. Like, this is really a technique specifically for ancient grains such as einkorn flour because they're more of a dense grain. They don't have that strong gluten that's going to help them to stretch and rise higher. And so putting the air in there is going to help them have the air bubbles, which will help them rise. You can learn more on this technique by looking at my video on sourdough einkorn bread for beginners. I talk about it there. You can also look at my buttermilk biscuit recipe, which I do a ton of folding in that one and explain it there also. If you're using ancient grains, I really recommend this technique of using the folding as opposed to the kneading. Now, all-purpose flour is what we're using today for this pizza, and that will help it a little bit. I did do another pizza video using einkorn and sourdough using whole grain einkorn flour, and that one turned out great. But this one is going to help have, with the all-purpose flour, this one will have a little bit of an extra rise because it's a lighter flour. It doesn't have the bran in it, and so that will help it be a little bit lighter than it was before. Okay, now you're going to place your ball back into the bowl. You're going to cover it with plastic wrap, and then we're going to set it aside to rise for about 6 to 8 hours. Now, rising times vary depending on temperature. As we're getting into the warmer months, while I'm making this video, you're not going to need as long of a rise time. If you are in the winter and it is a cold area that you're in, you might need a little bit more rise time. That would be the ideal time to do this overnight and then maybe set it in the fridge for a while you're waiting to bake it. So yes, you can put this in the fridge and then make that rise time last even longer, like if you want to do it over a day or something. I personally have not used that technique yet, so I can't tell you like how it worked out for me. So I decided to use some basic ingredients that I had to just blend up a pizza sauce. Now, back in, I would say February or so, I did a video on how I was experimenting with making pizza sauce to see if it was worth it to try and grow a pizza garden. That's kind of what people are calling it nowadays, just growing all of the ingredients so that you can make that, and then seeing if it was worth it to can it later this year. And you can go back and look at that video, see how I did it and stuff, and kind of worked backwards to decide what I was growing in my garden. Well, I also today just decided, hey, I'm just going to throw things together in the blender and make a super simple sauce. It was so simple, I forgot that I wouldn't even really need a knife. I think I did slice open the onion, but that was about it. I put in some onion, a little garlic. I used some Marzano tomatoes from Italy that I had picked up at Trader Joe's, and I just tossed all of the ingredients together. You know, I think I put some basil in, and some oregano that we had. Herbs are so great to have on hand. You can just toss them in things. Some salt and a little bit of honey. That really helped with the flavor too, I think. And then blended it up, poured it into a saucepan, and then simmered that for a while, and it was ready to go. Pretty hands-off homemade tomato sauce, and I had extras that I was able to use later for pastas. We don't use a ton of tomato sauce when we do tomato sauce, and so I was able to use it for multiple things, which was great. You might remember me using an iron pan to bake my pizza in when we were doing the whole wheat pizza crust last time. This time I am going all out. We are learning to enjoy making pizza and have it as a family, and I really did want to get that authentic brick oven crust. And I wanted to share how other families can do that too. And so I am using an actual pizza stone. So this is my WPPO baking stone from Kui Housewares that I got. It is a pizza stone. I've also used it for cookies. I would recommend, if you're getting a baking stone or you're wanting to use baking stones, get something like this that is big, because you can use it for both. I have another size in here. So maybe you've seen me use this one before. This is another baking stone that I've used for making cookies. I've made biscuits with it. The thing is, if I want to make pizza, I can't really go very large with the pizza. And so when I got this pizza stone, that was very helpful. I can still make all of my other baked goods, but I can also make a nice big pizza too. And so I would recommend, if you're going to go for a baking stone, getting like the circular pizza size, because you can still make cookies on that and do all your other baked goods also. It came with the directions, how to clean, all of that good stuff. You do want to make sure that you heat it up nice and hot in the oven. So maybe it's in the oven for like an hour before you're actually putting your pizza in. That will give you the best results. That's what gives you that brick oven style pizza. It's been about 5 hours since I started rising my dough. I was thinking it was going to be warmer today, but it's been just about 70, and I was hoping for it to be a little bit warmer to give it a better rise, or I should say a quicker rise. So I ended up bringing it upstairs because it's warmer upstairs. So it's been rising up there because it's in a room. So in the past hour and a half or so, it's been in a room that's like 75. Turning my oven on to 500 degrees. I'm going to let the baking stone heat in that for just about an hour. And you want, so this is my little pizza spatula. You want to keep your pizza stone in the oven, and you will end up using this to transfer your pizza to the pizza stone. So you do want to make sure that this is nice and floured, or some way that it is not going to stick on your spatula as you're transferring it to this one. The downside of it is that it's a little bit smaller, and so you really want it to be bigger than your actual crust. And so I kind of stretch that rule. I've had bigger pizzas than this that I've used, and it's kind of been like, oh, stay on, you know. It doesn't quite work, but I've made it work. All right, so after rising the dough, you're going to turn it out again onto a floured surface. And at this point, I'm going to divide my dough into 3 pieces with my bench scraper. I have a bench scraper from Kui Housewares, which I love. I love using it for not just pizza, but I use it to separate like biscuit dough. I use it for my sourdough. It's great for scooping things, for cutting things, for cleaning off counters. So I love this bench scraper. So you're going to divide it into 3 pieces. Generously flour your surface and then stretch out one of your pieces of dough, fold it over, stretch and fold several more times. So you're going to be so happy that you did all this stretching and folding with your dough and got those air pockets in when this is done, okay? Then after you do that about, 5 to 8 more times, you're going to take your dough back into a ball and then start stretching it out into a circle. You're going to flip it over while you're stretching it. Make sure that the other side is getting well floured, and then you'll go ahead and continue stretching it. This is one of those doughs that you don't have to worry too much about flouring it too much. With my sourdough breads, I don't want to give them too much flour because I want to keep the amounts correct, right? But with this one, it's okay if it is nice and floured. Our biggest concern with this one is that we don't want it to stick to the countertop or wherever you're working on, because that'll cause problems when you're trying to transfer it to the oven. So go ahead and stretch it out as thin as possible. For me, these end up being about 10 to 12 inches. You don't want to get too thin because then you'll start tearing it. If you do tear it, it's okay. Just press it back together. Now, at the end, make sure that you add flour underneath the dough if needed, because it's going to sit here for about an hour and you don't want it to stick to that countertop. Once again, remember that. And then you'll go ahead and put a towel on top of the dough, and it's time to turn on the oven. So now we're going to turn the oven onto 500 degrees Fahrenheit and place in our pizza stone. You can place the pizza stone nice and low here. I put mine, it was about the second from the bottom rack, I think. I've seen some people say put it on the bottom rack. So if your pizza turns out tough, that's a sign that you need to lower your rack down, lower that pizza stone down closer to the heating element. If you saw my video on making sourdough bread without using a Dutch oven, you'll remember that the point in that was that you want to have high heat for very little time. You only have a certain amount of time to get it to rise. And so we want it to rise as much as possible in that time. And with this pizza crust, it's very similar. We're going to get it nice and close to that heating element. It's going to take on the heat from the pizza stone, but it's only going to be there for a very short time. Okay, it's been about 45 minutes or so. I'm going to start putting the toppings on my pizza. And then I will transfer the pizza to my pizza peel shovel. It goes by a peel or a shovel. It does help when you're transferring the pizza to your pizza peel to kind of twist the crust as you're moving it on over. That way you don't tear the shape up. You don't change that circular shape very much. Now, I cannot tell you enough times that you do need to make sure to flour that crust. So flour your pizza peel before you move your pizza dough over to it. And this we're going to put into our oven. We'll be baking it for 7 to 9 minutes. And honestly, if you are in an oven and you've found that you need to lower the pizza stone down to the bottom rack, it might only take 6 minutes. So maybe I should be saying 6 to 9 minutes, but it's right in that area. So keep an eye on it. It's helpful to get it off of your pizza peel onto the pizza stone by using a little bit of vibration to help gravity pull it down. That way you're not going to really lose the toppings and you'll get it onto that stone without it sticking too bad. And of course, the pizza peel works a lot better getting the pizza out than it does putting it in, because the pizza is baked. It looks fabulous. It's got a little bit of crunchiness on the crust, as well as the bubbles that we love so much. This pizza is so fun to make, especially when you are using ingredients from your own garden. I would love to hear too, guys, if you guys are making pizza out of ingredients from your own garden. Do you guys make your own pizza sauce? Do you actually grow other ingredients that you use on pizza? Maybe it's a really interesting ingredient that people have never heard of. I'd love to hear about it. And I'd love to hear how you involve your family in making pizza. So let me know in the comments below. Thank you guys for watching. If you've made it this far into the video, give me a like below. And if you're not subscribed, I'd love if you came along and subscribe to the channel so then you get a notification when new videos are coming out on YouTube. I will talk to you guys again soon. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.